Hello there, and welcome to Weird Music on the Glumburger channel. The show where we take, brief little dives into the weird and wonderful world of unusual music, right? I say nothing's off the table, sometimes we look at weird albums, sometimes we look at normal albums, sometimes I'm just weird, it's all over the place, right? So, in today's episode, we have a requested episode that goes as far back as when this show first started, suggested by none other than my partner, who was also responsible for requesting the Meowie Christmas episode, so... however, this is an album she came across one day, and she actually introduced me to this album, and since then, I just adore and love this album. It's one of the best things she's ever introduced me to. It's just full of good vibes and Moog synthesizer fun. So today I present to you Mort Garson's 1976 legendary album, Mother Earth's Plantasia. Man, I am genuinely excited to be presenting this one on Weird Music. It's, like I said, easily one of my favourite albums she's ever introduced me to, and don't get me wrong, there is a bunch of them, to be fair. We might talk about some others in the future, actually, but this one is just an absolute delight. So, of course, let's ask ourselves the question, who is Mort Garson? Well, Mort Garson is a Canadian composer, arranger, songwriter, etc. And he has a fascinating history that, oddly led him from humble beginnings into a world of electronic music. And Garson originally started off as a session musician, collaborating on a great number of works and eventually co-writing many songs with, such artists as Brenda Lee, Cliff Richard, and Ruby and the Romantics. It was in 1967, though, that Garson met the one and only Robert Moog at a music engineers convention, which then led him to start using one of the early models of the Moog synthesizer. So I think it might be worth asking ourselves another question here. What is a Moog synthesizer? Well, the Moog is a modular synthesizer developed by Robert Moog, of course, as we just mentioned. It's a synth that consists of separate modules which create sound shapes connected via patch cords, of course. And some of the modules include, voltage-controlled oscillators, amplifiers, filters, envelope generators, noise generators, ring modulators, triggers, and mixers. It's an incredibly versatile instrument that ended up being a staple of 1970s progressive rock, being used as such acts like Yes, Tangerine Dream, and of course the legendary Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And even modern bands use it as well today, like segue time here, off on a tangent moment. One of the first bands I ever got into when I was a young teenager was the band Motion City Soundtrack. And their member, Jesse Kane, uses the Moog a lot and even has, his signature Moog handstand that he does in his live shows, which I think is very cool. That was my, as a young person, that was my first introduction to this particular instrument, and I just love the little, woo-woo kind of sounds you get from it. Going back to Garson, though, the Moog essentially became one of, if not the most important compositional tool for Garson's musical career. And arguably amongst his whole musical career, one of the most standout albums in that entire discography is the wonderfully delightful Plantasia, of course. An electronic album specifically composed for plants to listen to. And so, we'll get into it in a bit later, but I think there is something truly delightful and charming about the sheer notion of an album for plants. It's one that is designed to help them grow. It's been a well, thought out concept. That talking to your plants, helps to nurture and grow them into wonderful specimens. But also, does it actually really do anything? Who knows? The consensus is out on that one. But I think there is, logic to it, as, plants are living, breathing things, and nurturing and loving something helps it tremendously in its life. And Plantasia, as an album, is specifically designed to help in the such process. as well as just simply being a delightful album to listen to. I mentioned this in the video for Frog Fellowship, but when it comes to albums like that and Plantasia, I find it very difficult to dissect it song by song, and I feel like, the way that Garson has composed this on the Moog specifically, it all just flows into each other. You have these different movements, these different emotions, feelings, and concepts being explored in each and every song, which on Plantasia actually covers, a whole range of different plants that you might come across if you get into gardening or something. But it all just creates this one overall album experience that exudes these wonderful vibes, It's electronic music that just puts a smile in your face as it progresses from track to track. And it just, to me, expresses such a lovely admiration for one of nature's most important creations, Truly a lovely album to listen to. And as mentioned, I love the progression from track to track, though. It really expresses the capabilities of the Moog as an instrument, whilst, also being the creation of something truly delightful in itself, an entire album for plants, It's experimental electronic, no doubt, but what amazes me that as, almost far out as it is, in terms of its concept perhaps, there is something truly accessible here for so many people, and not just people, but plants as well. And that is truly a delightful thing, surely, isn't it? And so, let's just talk more about this album. Why not? It was in 2019 that Sacred Bones Records announced a reissue of Plantasia, releasing it on streaming service, physically on vinyl, CD of course, and even cassette. And the album was circulating the internet for a couple of years prior, but the reissue allowed people to express their love and admiration for this particular album by purchasing those same physical copies, which, it's just a delight to look at, isn't it? And so my partner has the physical CD here that I think I bought this one for her birthday, actually. I can't remember, to be fair. And the CD version, for example, features the original album of Plantasia, as well as the original Mother Earth Indoor Plant Care booklet. And it's a rather comprehensive little portion of text that goes into great detail about tips for caring for your plants, as well as discussing the history of the very album, the individual tracks themselves and what they're expressing, the inspirations for their names as well. Bit of information about about the particular plants as well, though, and what you can do to help look after them. And as well, one of the best things about this album booklet, is right at the end is a booklet titled "Mother Earth's Hassle-Free Remedy Chart," which is an incredibly helpful booklet in assisting the diagnosis and treatment for unwell plants, which is perfect for plant lovers like myself, who don't have much of an idea of how to look after plants properly, truth be told. Let's be honest, I can barely look after myself, can I? Anyway, to get back to it though, it's such a charming physical release, and I have to say, I truly adored the illustrations as well, though, which were all designed by one Marvin Rubin, who has illustrated many different designs for various releases under, the Mother Earth project, moniker, concept, whatever you want to call it, And as well, when researching for this particular album, I discovered that a lot of his artwork had been lovingly compiled together into the book The Art of Marvin Rubin. So it's well worth a look at if you just adore the wonderful artwork of this album, essentially. So I think it's kind of easy to see why an album like this has garnered such a cult following over the years. It's just such a wonderful album that just exudes so many good vibes through the music itself, and just being this lovely, pleasant album to listen to, What I love as well, though, is that the most viewed version of this album on YouTube, which at this point in time has around 2.9 million views, it features so many lovely comments from people all over the world, just enjoying this album for exactly what it is. It's music to put a smile on your face and cheer you up after an arduous day, or music to have on in the background when you're stuck in your home office coding away at something difficult and you need something that's not too intrusive but still delightful to listen to. It's music you have on when you just want to close your eyes and smile and think about all that's good in the world, Maybe anyway. maybe. It's what comes across to me every time I hear this album, you know. Music, I find it to be so de-stressing. Perfect for just calming down and switching off, you know, and it's those vibes that the Moog gives off in each and every single track here, you know. It's charming and it's wholesome to just an absurdly lovely degree, and it is perhaps a perfect album in some respects, you know. I can't fault this album for any reason. It's an electronic Moog album for plants that just does everything that it wants to do correctly, I feel. Before we close off, I think it's worth discussing the concept. Is this album actually useful in aiding the growth of your plants? So no doubt it's a point of contention to some. However, the effects of music on growth is something that has been studied in many different scientific fields, you know, all over the years essentially. And to me, it kind of makes sense. You know, that positive and good music would have an effect on the growth of your plants because, well, why wouldn't it? And so many, for example, so many people believe that talking to your plants has an incredibly positive effect on their growth, and it doesn't seem that weird to me that this charming, beautiful music could also help, right? And to discuss this a bit more, inside Mother Earth's indoor plant care booklet, in the text of the album's opening title track, there's a reference to an experiment that was actually carried out. And so I find this text to be very fascinating, so I'm just going to read it out verbatim for you all watching right now. The experiments as to the consciousness of plants are legion and documented. They have been known to react hostilely on special electronic equipment to persons who have harmed them. They have been known to respond to their owner's voice over a telephone thousands of miles away. Do they prefer classical music to rock? Well, the best story of all comes from a Southern California college where a professor took 3 identical sets of houseplants and put them in 3 rooms of identical growing conditions. In the first room, he played only classical music, and those plants thrived. In the second room, he played only rock music, and those plants thrived. In the third room, he played only the news. Those plants died. Let that one grow on you while you listen. I think it's funny, to be fair. I'll be honest, I don't know the validity of the experiment itself or the origins of it, but, you know, I just find it funny and delightful. It makes me laugh, and it kind of makes sense as well, you know. Like, I've especially noticed in the past few years that the news is an incredible source of depressing just notions and stuff, and so it is not good for your health, I feel. And it would make sense that, you know, it kills the plants. So you as a listener, you take what you want from it, you know, but there's one more final piece of information worth mentioning, and that is a little quote that's on the back of the CD that might perhaps cement some opinions on the validity of music for plants. It has been proven beyond any doubt that harmonic sound waves affect the growth, flowering, and the seed yield of plants. Dr. T. Singh, Department of Botany, Annamalaya University, India. So, you know, a doctor in the Department of Botany at a university in India, that seems pretty valid to me, right? I would say so anyway. I think it's very cool though, like, it's very cool. And I think with that, we're going to come to the end of our episode of Weird Music. This episode's been an incredibly long time coming, but as I explained to my partner, sometimes I find it difficult to articulate words about certain things, and you know, I have been discovering this is so much more difficult when it comes to stuff that's been requested for the channel, which is kind of awkward, but it is what it is. I can only apologise. In any case, though, I'm glad to have talked about, you know, one of our favourite albums, though, on the channel. Though I really like that this is one she discovered on her own and introduced me to, which normally in our house it would definitely be the other way around, of course. But I'm grateful though, because it's such a lovely listening experience, you know, and I do hope that, you know, the plants enjoy listening to it. I'm pretty sure they do, and that's another thing that delights me about this album. It's one that transcends species and cannot be just enjoyed by everyone, but everything, if that makes sense. And so, I'd like to thank you for watching today's episode of Weird Music. Huge thanks to Jem for her suggestion for this show. Sorry it took me so long to make it, but we got there eventually. And so I wish you all the best, take care, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.